Hey, it's Tim and Lisa, and you're listening to the REI Concierge podcast. The REI Concierge helps Americans living abroad find and buy great investment properties in the U.S. From analyzing markets to finding local partners to closing your first deal, we are partnered with you every step of the way. Let's jump into today's episode. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the REI Concierge podcast with Tim and Lisa. We are thrilled to be joined with David Shaw today. David is the owner of West Florida Invest, and he has decades of experience as a real estate investor literally around the globe. So we are really excited to have David on the show today. David, welcome.
Thank you so much, Lisa and Tim. I'm excited. I'm pumped. Let's get going.
We have to pull back the curtain on what just transpired not 4 minutes ago before the podcast, because we have to start it this way. So David jumps on from Florida, and he's got like these screens up where he's literally bidding on a judicial foreclosure as we speak. And there was like 50 seconds left, and he was the high bid. And then he goes to show us how he calculated his ARV and all the numbers that he ran and what goes into the madness that is the final amount that he was willing to bid. Flip back to the screen, and someone had outbid him by like $100.
And it's all our fault.
We start off the podcast. It's totally our fault. He was showing us how he calculates the numbers, but he's got a smile on his face because, like you said, I mean, you do this all the time, and 98 of them about go with your expectations. One far surpasses it, and one is kind of the dog of the race and just way far below what you expected. But anyways, we just had to start off with that. We just witnessed a bidding loss on an auction. So David, I'm sorry, but welcome. We're glad to have you here.
Hey guys, listen, it's you have a lot of irons in the fire every single day. That's when you run a business kind of like ours, we're a pretty high volume fix and flip business, buy and hold business. We do kind of a number of those kind of activities. So, when you're high volume, it's kind of easy come, easy go. I'm really bummed that we missed out on that one, but it was a really nice house as well. I'll hold it against you for the rest of my life, Lisa.
This is a great way to start an interview. This is good. We're already in the podcast. Congratulations, guys. Your podcast is really good so far. I've been really enjoying the episodes. I really enjoy what you guys are doing. I think you're really adding a lot of value to the space. So well done.
Thank you so much. That means a lot.
Yeah.
David, tell our listeners who you are. Give us a little story of David Shaw, your background, how you got into real estate. And I know this is a huge story, so pick the highlights that you want to.
Yeah. I'll get through it as painlessly as possible. I'm Irish. I'm from Dublin in Ireland. Just like everybody else, I graduated university, and I was a construction project manager post-university. That's what I did. In my career, I worked at construction project management space in San Francisco and New York and Ireland. And I just really wasn't inspired by my day job. I guess that rings true with an awful lot of people,
Yeah.
And in that, I started investing just a little bit on my own. And I made some pretty decent decisions in around 99 and 2000 and 2001, around there, start picking up some inventory. And in 2005, literally a little birdie whispered in my ear and told me to sell everything. A good friend of mine in Ireland, he was a big currency exchange trader for one of the large banks in Ireland, and he was selling all his own stuff. I was like, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Well, I don't like the landscape. I think stuff is going to start changing around town." And he's selling his own house. So I was like, "Yeah, I don't know much about it. I'm just in construction, but I'm going to start selling my stuff." So I ended up in 2006, kind of got rid of everything I owned, including my own personal home and everything else. But I ended up with that old problem. It's like I had cash and the market was kind of crashing down all around me. So this kind of inadvertently my segue into real estate, in that I needed to do something with the money that I had. And And right at that moment in time, the best buying opportunity in a century presented itself, but I didn't know how to maximize it. I wasn't an experienced real estate investor at that point in time. I liked a lot of what other people were doing as the EU was as it was expanding, and interest rates were coming down and down and down, like places like Lithuania, Latvia, Bulgaria, Romania, Poland. There's a lot of buying opportunity in these towns or in these cities, the main cities in these countries. So there were companies that were kind of just emerged. They call themselves emerging market specialists. So there's companies that were doing this at that time, and I really wanted to kind of know more about how to do some value investing. So that's kind of where I learned to underwrite, kind of where I learned to the importance of cash flow and the importance of strong underwriting, the importance of a fairly fundamental approach to what investing should be about. And from there, I got in contact with some of these companies. One of them invited me to come and work for them for a little while, and so I took a 98% pay cut to go work for a company like that, just because I really wanted to. I really wanted to get into real estate investing because I'd made so much inadvertently. I was like, okay, if I professionalize this at all, I can definitely get out of my day job. So then in kind of 2007, so I worked for a company. We were doing some projects in East Germany. Well, it was then obviously Germany, obviously Berlin. We were doing stuff in Poland. We were doing stuff in Belize. We were doing stuff in Panama City. We were doing stuff in Buenos Aires in Argentina. And then kind of really like 2008 started to make its way around. And I'm sitting in Dublin, and I know there's a massive opportunity in the US in general, because it's obviously the blood is on the street by mid 2008. So I flew over to Florida, and I tried to figure out, okay, what can I do here? How can I take advantage of these prices that are falling? And the dollar had actually fallen quite a bit at that time as well. So I tried to learn, what are these short sales that everybody's talking about? How do I get in touch with these banks? Everyone's talking about the banks. How do I get in touch with them? What are these foreclosures that people are talking about? So from there on in, I found it was very, very clunky and almost unworkable to try and build up a portfolio or build up a business around short sales at that time, because the banks themselves didn't really know how to deal with them, Interesting. The banks were only learning it. Now, the big institutional investors were not there yet. So I kind of settled in on a business model that was, there was a lot of these condo conversions. So these are garden style apartment complexes that you see all over the state of Florida. Well, a huge amount of people had converted those to condominiums, a lot of developers, and they were selling these things at $220 a door or $230 a door. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac were funding them, and everything was going well. Well, the big lenders stopped funding them overnight. Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac just cut funding from underneath them. So now these things, they couldn't give them away. So they went from 220 to like 80. And when that happened, there was a race out the door. And not only was there a race out the door, but obviously all of the HOAs themselves stopped being paid. Okay, so you got people en masse not paying the homeowners association. So the buildings themselves are in risk of going into disrepair and the like. So I had built up with my business partner at that time, we'd gone out on our own to take advantage of this US opportunity. So we came in and we took out basically all of these condominium communities that were too small for the big guys. So like kind of 30 units and above, but too big for, too small for the big guys and too big for the small guys type of thing, So anything from between like, let's say 30 and like 180, 190 units, we'd go in and we'd negotiate with them. We'd take their inventory, we'd bring it back to Europe. The rents always stayed stable. So, we were getting 10, 11, 12% cap rates. Wow. We had to do nothing at all. They were already renovated. They were already clean as a whistle. We literally just had to take them, bring them out to Scottish investors, Irish investors, Scandinavian investors, English investors, and we sold literally thousands of them. So we were the solution, myself and my business partner. We came in and we offered that solution to the condominium community owners, but also to the European investors. And, we're literally the first company in here offering that opportunity. But then 2012, and we did that 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13. But by 2014, the inventory that was left was getting worse and worse. The yields were getting compressed. The institutional guys were coming back coming back type of thing. And so I moved into, again, I started scanning the marketplace for yield. And so, we just started basically buying and renovating single family homes. And we've done that in mass over the years. Probably, at this point in time, I've probably renovated, well over 600 single family homes myself personally. And here we are talking on this podcast. So, let's talk. I built up a portfolio. Yeah, I built up a personal portfolio as well that, it's kind of given me that, there's one thing that a lot of people confuse out there, like, a busy realtor or a busy fix and flip guy. Somehow, some way, he's a real estate guy. Yeah, he knows how to do fix and flipping. But just like you guys and just like everybody listening to this podcast, it's also incumbent on me to build up my own real estate portfolio, because fix and flipping is just a job. That's all it is. Right? You can do as much of it as you like. You can do tens of thousands of homes. You've got a hard, busy, well-paying job, but you're not creating any kind of meaningful wealth. And what we're going to talk about today is how people who have really busy jobs and busy lives and busy careers, we're going to talk to them. I'm going to impart what I've learned over my career as to how those people can create meaningful wealth. Because I have to, in order for me to create meaningful wealth, I have to do exactly the same things as what we're going to talk about today.
So that's a great segue. I know. So like David, when you and I first talked, I don't know, over a year, when we were looking for, trusted partners in Florida for our clients, and you really harped on the idea of time. Real estate is so much all about time. And then when we spoke recently, you said, you've really built out what you call your E=MC² of wealth creation when it comes to real estate investing. And that's really the debt times time times scale equals your wealth. So now that I've kind of laid the stage, we want to hear all about that, because obviously you have all the experience and you've done this for yourself and you've done this for clients, and, you teach folks that this is really how, like you said, you can do these fix and flips, you can do the wholesale, but if you're really looking to create wealth, that's just a full-time job, and it's a hard one at that. Like, it's good paying, right, but if you're not reinvesting that into your own portfolio and building that passive wealth for you and your family, then you're just going to be working for the rest of your life. So walk us through your kind of your formula for putting this active income into your passive portfolio and how that works over time and how you want to scale it, and just kind of go with whatever direction you want to go in that, because I'm fascinated by all these formulas you put together and stuff.
Well, that's right. When you have a busy, well-paid job, there's one thing that happens kind of once a year that starts to really impact you after it's happened to you a lot. And that's when you start paying the IRS vast amounts of money. That is, as much as I love infrastructure and as much as I love this country, and I'm a citizen of this country, paying vast amounts of tax year after year after year gets a little bit redundant after a while, and
it's a little
you're like,
old.
okay, yeah, well, we'll just so each time you sell a house, you create a tax event. That's basically what I'm saying. So every time you pay or every time you do anything, you sell anything in life, you're largely creating a tax event. And if you do that enough times, after a while, you're like, what am I doing wrong? So I can tell you, I basically, my parents never pulled me aside and gave me any kind of financial education. I come from a standard middle class home. I had no guidance from anybody above me, below me or around me over the years. These are just whatever we're going to talk about over the next a couple of minutes is really just my own personal experience. And it's what I've derived from my own experience of being out there, building up a real estate business, paying taxes, and like, what am I doing wrong? I thought I could outrun, I thought I could make enough money that I could just create wealth by creating enough passive income or overwhelming passive income. And somehow, not passive income, active income, that I could somehow get wealthy. Now, what I have realized all over my life, is that it's about scaling yourself, right? So most of us go to work every day and we have a job. Now, you can't send two of you to work, right? You can only send you to work. You're the only person. So you kind of tap out at what you can scale yourself to be. Now, some people, don't get me wrong, some people can be the CEO of large tech companies, and they can create, or they can generate a lot of wealth for themselves through active income. But most of us don't. Most of us don't own a business we can scale. So basically, there's three ways I've found that people around me have made wealth in their lives. They own a business that they've been able to scale, okay? And they've gotten to the very, very top of a very, very large public company, which is very, very, very few of us are going to get there.
Very rare.
Are they born wealthy, or they've invested their way there? That's basically it. And so if you have a busy job, and that goes to most people that we're kind of talking to here today. If you have a busy job, you know, the one thing I hear over and over again is, well, I'm so busy. Well, I've got, you know, the podcast that you guys did a couple of weeks ago where you guys discussed the 5 profit centers of real estate. They're the basic foundations of understanding why people should invest in real estate. Okay. I'm not going to rehash them. You've already talked about them at length, but actually I'd like to take it on an extra step, because I've dealt with literally thousands of investors. I've been on the phone with thousands of investors, and most of my investors are extremely well paid, Silicon Valley type engineers. So I would say that's your typical investor that I'm on the phone to each day. And they, for the most part, investors get caught up in a number of traps. I only know these traps because I hear about them every day. I've done them myself. I've been guilty of every single one of these. And basically, you know, we get caught up in our own fears about what's going to happen next year or the year after. What's going to happen to interest rates? What's going to happen to the next president? Well, you know, anything that you want to put in front of you about trying to foretell the future. Yeah. We get caught up in a fear of debt. Okay, I'm going to take on, you know, I'm going to get into real estate, but I'm going to do, you know, I'll just do one deal and see how it goes. I'll do 2 deals and see how it goes. Another big one is that we get caught up trying to speculate that, you know, we buy a house in an up and coming neighborhood, and you know, we're like, okay, cool, I got a house in an up and coming neighborhood. I bought it for $200,000. It's now worth $400,000. I'm like, that's fantastic. Did you buy more in that neighborhood? I was like, well, no, now they're $400,000. Of course I didn't buy more. I'm like, you're not creating meaningful wealth. You did well, but it's not scalable. You can't continue to, that's not a business model that's scalable, where you go out and you find up and coming neighborhoods and you consistently get that right throughout your life. It's just not a way. So all of these things that I've just mentioned are the things that, you know, every single one of us start out when we're starting, and we make out all of those mistakes.
Listen to the full podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, or any of your favorite podcast apps.